I want to thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk, where we ain't scared. My name is A1, and let me first say thank you to everyone that supports this podcast. It is greatly appreciated. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe. You know you like this podcast. Those of you who are sitting on the fence, go ahead and jump on over to the We Ain't Scared side. All right? And for those of you that might be a little shy, okay, try it for a year. Just give it 1 year. And if you're not completely satisfied, I will reach out to you and beg you to stay. So give it a try. Like and share. And thanks to those who have purchased their mugs. Definitely appreciate that. Those We Ain't Scared mugs, strong, black, and they make fantastic BFFs for life. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and jump into today's podcast. And I have, as usual, a lot of notes, and I always like to give backstory as to where these ideas came from. And this is birthed out of the recent mass shootings that took place most recently in El Paso, and then the public outcry or outrage or backlash as a result. So it really started me to thinking, are these mass shootings in reality, are they as bad as the media would have you believe, especially when you juxtapose or position them next to mass incarceration, along with police brutality. But for the purposes of this podcast, I'm just going to focus primarily on the question of, are assault, or rather, let me repeat that, is the problem assault rifles or racism? Let me say it again. Is the problem assault rifles or racism? So, this discussion about banning the sale of assault rifles has been an ongoing debate since assault rifles were able to be sold to the general public. And then the so-called mentally ill white men started shooting and killing people in public places. So it's interesting to me how it's always a mentally ill white male that is causing or causes so much death and destruction. But let me not digress. So let's talk about the assault rifles, okay? Because I think it's important for you to understand some of the backstory. So they come in many forms. There's the AK-47, which I believe is in the same family of the Kalashnikov, I believe. It's a Russian-made AK-47 rifle, the original. And then there's the AR-15. And those are the most well-known. They're the most popular. Like, they're the Air Jordans of assault rifles. And this is based on sales to white men. And it's also used in the military, the U.S. military, but it goes by another name, which is the M16. Now, so let's make sure that we are clear on that as we move forward and dive a little deeper. The AR-15 style rifle is a lightweight, semi-automatic rifle, and it was based on the Armalite AR-15 design. Now, Armalite, just so that you know, they actually sold their patent and trademark to Colt's Manufacturing Company in 1959. Colt, C-O-L-T, very, very popular gun manufacturer. Now, after the patents expired in 1977, Colt retained the trademark and is the exclusive owner of AR-15s, or that name, AR-15. Okay, now, it goes on to say about the AR-15 that it has become one of the most beloved and, of course, most vilified rifles, and that's because most of the time when there's a mass shooting, what do the killers use? An AR-15. So the NRA stands on the sidelines, and they stand firmly in support of the AR-15. Now, let's see. The guns themselves were banned. They are banned in New Zealand and Australia. So those two countries realize the problems that these guns cause, and so they've just outright banned them. Now, here's something that's interesting. As I move forward into this information, in Tennessee in 2013, get this, the police were allowed to carry personal AR-15 rifles. Think about that. The cops in Tennessee in 2013 were given permission, okay, to carry their personally purchased AR-15 rifles with them. All right, so look, now we're going to talk about some numbers because, when you start talking about numbers, all this other emotions and emotional BS goes out the window. So about 1.3 million assault rifles are sold each year. And this is according to the National Shooting Sports Foundation study. Never heard of them before, but National Shooting Sports Foundation study. What they found, the AR-15, its initials, for those that don't know, AR stands for assault rifle. And the Armalite being its original manufacturer, this gun is a descendant of the machine guns Nazi infantrymen used against Soviet forces in World War II. I find it interesting that these guns that are so popular among white nationalists, neo-Nazis, the KKK, police, race soldiers, that they have ties to Nazi-era hate and destruction. And I don't think that's by accident. Okay, I think that hate seeks out hate and it perpetuates itself. So let me continue. U.S. gun manufacturers have produced 150 million guns since 1986. Okay, so U.S. companies have manufactured more than 70 million firearms since 2008, rapidly escalating the production of pistols and the types of rifles used in recent mass shootings. So again, tying this back to, is the problem assault rifles or racism? So just simply stay with me here. So in 2016, the latest year for which data is available, production spiked. Imagine that. The guns become more popular, they sell more, the bottom line gets fatter, profits increase. Okay, so there were roughly 11 million guns that were produced in 2016. And this is in part because of its popularity, as I said, and the Democrats during that time would go on to win a lot of seats, and they did their best to curb access to semi-automatic weapons like the AR-15. Okay, now more than 4 million rifles produced in 2016. That was up from 1.8 million since 2010. Now the NRA is it's a really interesting organization, the National Rifle Association, because the reality is they can never take a firm stance against the purchase of any sort of weapon, because then they would be condemning themselves. But here's an estimate coming from them. They estimate that 25% of all rifles produced in the United States are AR-15s and or some other type of semi-automatic style, while other gun groups have said the ratio is closer to 50%, 50. Now, I'm more inclined to believe it's the 50% number. Now, one could hear that and read those stats and become easily overwhelmed by the sheer numbers. Okay, 1.3 million AR-15 sold each year. That's a lot of weapons. And on some small scale, that would be true. However, if you do more math, and we're going to take the entire United States population, 342 million U.S. citizens, okay, versus 1.3 million AR-15s that are sold. That works out to about 0.375% of the U.S. population, which is extremely small. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the percentage of the 1.3 million AR-15s that are actually used in the mass shootings, which yearly is estimated to be about 7 mass shootings per year, okay? So 7 mass shootings a year in a country with 342 million people is 0.0000% of something. It's small. So, in my opinion, the assault rifles are not the problem, because in and of themselves, a gun cannot harm anybody without human intervention or a human finger pulling the trigger. So now let's get into the questions. And these are the questions that have to be dealt with in terms of what type of person would purchase an assault rifle with the intent to harm another human being. Okay, question number 2. Why would someone purchase an assault rifle with the intent of shooting and killing another human being? Question number 3. Who has typically purchased assault rifles and used them to conduct mass shootings, and why? What is the motivation for these type of violent outbursts? So lots of questions with obvious and straightforward answers. Number 1, we already know that there are roughly 7 mass shootings each year, which are perpetrated by what? So-called mentally ill white males from across America. And this is by society's own admission, psycho professionals or psychiatrists and the media. They all admit that when these mass shootings occur, oh yeah, they were perpetrated by mentally ill white men. And again, they are the ones that are saying it. I'm just repeating it. White males are the primary perpetrators. So, number 2, usually after the mass shootings, the mentally ill white males are tied to what? Some neo-Nazi, KKK, white nationalist group, or they are followers of who? Donald Trump. And there's some MAGA hat somewhere in a photo on some of their social media feeds. So now the question becomes, if the guns in and of themselves can't drive cars and they can't shoot people, again, on their own, and we know that white males are the largest purchasers of these weapons, which is a fact, what is the motivation for the mass shooting, killing spree? In a nutshell, racism. Racism is the leading cause of death, not just for black people, but for other minorities in America. And as usual, it is at the hands of white males that view minorities as a threat to their existence. So instead of accepting that their time is coming to an end, what do? They lash out and they decide to try and kill the threat, to neutralize the threat, just like who? King Leopold II, when he tried to kill 10 to 15 million Africans, Hitler, when he was trying to exterminate the Jews, the United States government, slavery, police in America with police brutality, when they hire race soldiers. We know that neo-Nazis have infiltrated police forces across the country, and they are arbitrarily out in these streets of America, killing unarmed black men and women. That is a fact. And there was a study, I think, that came out of Michigan University that said that black men's, the leading cause of death is at the hands of police, which is ridiculous. Okay, continuing. The conversation about gun control is disingenuous, okay, because it completely ignores and absolves white males and the connection to racism of any responsibility. Racism is the fuel that drives the thought process to buy a weapon that has the ability to murder hundreds of people in seconds. Racism or racist and hate-filled propaganda drive certain white males to act out and murder indiscriminately. To blame assault rifles for a moral and character flaw ignores what? Personal responsibility and accountability. In my opinion, you could sell 10 million assault rifles to a group of people that aren't racist, and I can almost guarantee that no mass shootings will occur. Racism and hatred lead to a person wanting to do what? Act out that hatred to show how racist they are. This is called becoming radicalized or homegrown terrorist activities. And that again, to prove that the person has accepted the propaganda as truth when in fact it's a lie. Now, of course, white males, this is who the target of this sort of activity is. They're neo-Nazis, white nationalist groups that act out violently to show their allegiance. Now, the problem is white males in government are the ones that are conducting the investigations, the prosecutions, and writing the legislations that would punish these other offending white males. So, to expect that they will levy harsh punishments against themselves has proven to be difficult. So again, in short, white males do not punish white males. What do? They coddle and protect each other and then look at everyone else like we are crazy. It is denial and delusion, and that keeps fostering the mental illness that they themselves admit that they themselves suffer from. In my opinion, the simple fix is this: don't sell assault rifles to white males. Simple, since they obviously have a propensity to act out violently due to their predisposition and admitted mental illness and lack of self-control around assault rifles. I could probably stop and end the podcast there. But let's continue. This, again, seems like a very simple solution, right? Okay, if yes, then how come there is so much pushback? Because the patients are running the asylum. That's why. You can't expect the people with the mental illness to behave as if they don't suffer from the mental illness. Racism is a taught behavior that many in America, with 3 Ks, have accepted as normal, when in reality it is a sickness that has infected this country for over 400 years. So my conclusion is this: assault rifles are not the enemy. The real enemy are the white males that are predisposed for violence and that suffer from mental illness because of racism. Keep that in mind. Now, if we recommended a psych evaluation for every single white male that wants to purchase an assault rifle, that might help reduce the mass shootings that we are experiencing. So please give them an ink blot test. Put them on the couch. Okay, let's make sure that they're not mentally ill. And if it's discovered that they are batshit crazy, we can give them a straitjacket instead of allowing them to purchase an assault rifle. Seems fair to me. What do we have to lose? Exactly nothing. So, I'm sure you have your own thoughts. And as always, that's great. That's the purpose of the podcast. Keep the conversation going. It's important. This is not going to be the last time that these mass shootings occur. It is not going to be the last time that there is a white male behind the trigger of that mass shooting who claims, or that the media says, or society says, well, they're suffering from mental illness. It will happen again. But again, is the problem the assault rifles or racism? And the assault rifles in and of themselves are harmless. There has to be some hateful motivation, like racism, behind it all. So, I want to thank you for checking out another podcast of We Ain't Scared Talk. My name is A1, and you got some good food for thought. Listen again. Tell a friend. We ain't scared.